Hey everyone, it's that guy over there bringing you the final part of our Codex review. It's the heavy support section, part 7. It's hard to believe that I've uploaded like, 9 videos and over a period of just a few days, but yeah, we are cooking with Crisco over here on the channel. So yeah, so heavy support. Now, while the headquarters is like the most required section. The elites has some of the coolest options, like lictors and things like that. Troops largely overlooked. Fast attack. Um, a lot of my favorite units are in fast attack, such as I really like strikes and gargoyles. But there's also some really highly competitive choices there too, with the hive crones and exocrines. Exocrines. I'm looking at exocrines. It's the hive crones and harpies. Um, the heavy support uh, the heavy support section is another highly contested section that you'll find a lot of strong choices here as well. As it is with many codexes, the heavy support um, does a lot of the heavy lifting. So some army lists will struggle to, fill all the slots. Some armies builds will wish they had more slots for heavy support. So it's a good section, is what I'm trying to say, and you'll probably end up taking at least a couple of these unit choices. So to start her off, we'll go with Biovores. So Biovores, they are the Tyranid artillery that shoots out uh, spore mines, but they're weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 3, initiative 2, attacks 2, leadership 6, and 4 plus armor save. They're infantry. They have weapons in Biomorphs, the spore mine launcher. Their special rules is hunt, which is pretty key because if they are out of Synapse range, which they're likely to be because they'll be in the backfield, they'll get pinned at worst. They won't run off the table. They're very bulky. The spore mine rules are here for deep strike, fearless floating death, and living bomb. Essentially, they're shooting out these spore mines. So spore mines are a strength 4, AP4 blast. They are barrage, so they ignore intervening terrain or cover, and the wounds are centered on the hull of the first template. So you can snipe out like a melt-a-gun or something in a unit by dropping. If you get a direct hit with that first template, all of the hits go on whoever's in the center of the template. So they call that barrage sniping, where you center the template on somebody and then hope for a direct hit so that all the hits hit that guy first. You can still do lookout sirs and stuff, but obviously a melt-a-gun or a apothecary isn't necessarily going to have a lookout sir. So yeah, strength 4, AP4, and then if you miss, if no enemy units are under the template, you can put 3 spore mines on basically where the template is, anywhere on the template. And we ruled that you can assault the turn that they come out, just because they're not deep striking or anything, and nothing prevents them from assaulting. So now that they're there, they can charge in. So it's almost like you can't miss. Their Biovores are really cool. They're really they're part of one of the formations we'll talk about at a later time. But they really provide you with a level of fire support that other units can't. And those big strength 4 AP4 templates should not be just ignored. They're pretty key, and it's the pressure. They're a unit that pressures your opponent, and they don't like having templates raining on them. And I've found that my Biovores are often the first to die, but that's good because they're 40 points each, and for 120 points for 3 of them, if they absorb a whole turn's worth of shooting, that's good news for the rest of my army. So I really like Biovores, and there's a lot of builds that they can support. Exocrines are another heavy support choice. They are 170 points. Web skill 3, build skill 3, strength 6, toughness 6, wounds 5, initiative 3, attacks 3, leadership 7, save 3+. They're monstrous creatures. They have the bioplasmic cannon and scything talons. Now the bioplasmic cannon When I reviewed weapons, we went over this, but it's a 24-inch range, strength 7 AP2, assault 1, large blast. So it's kind of like a large blast plasma cannon without the gets hot. It does not have gets hot. But you can choose an alternate mode called streams where it's got 24-inch strength 7 AP2, assault 6. So basically you can choose whether to do a template or just 6 shots. Obviously they each have their uses, and you can freely choose between the two of them with no penalties. So if you're shooting at a big mass of infantry, the blast is probably better. If you're trying to like shoot down a plane or hit like a single monstrous creature, the streams are better because you get more hits on one model as opposed to one hit on a lot of models. They are fearless. They have instinctive behavior hunt. So again, they are immune to the bad stuff. They can't be pinned, so they just have to shoot the closest thing if they fail their leadership check. They have a rule called symbiotic targeting. If an exocrine does not move in its movement phase, it gains +1 bonus to its ballistic skill to the end of its turn. An exocrine cannot declare a charge during the same turn that it uses this special rule. So basically, you can give up. A lot of times if you feel instinctive behavior, you aren't going to charge anyway. Well, actually, all the time you're not going to get to charge. Or you can just choose not to move once you set up within 24-inch range. And you get +1, and now your ballistic skill 4, which is pretty nice for Tyranids. Interestingly, it doesn't say anything about like if you cast Onslaught and then they run and shoot. It just says as long as you don't move in the movement phase, you get +1 ballistic skill. So theoretically, I guess you could like cast Onslaught, run, and then shoot, and still be fine. But again, that's a rules argument I don't really want to have with my opponent. But it is in there. The rules support you, I would say. So those are the two big like blast template shooter bugs. And I have never played with the exocrine, but originally when the Codex first came out, a lot of people were taking them, and they're part of that the living artillery node is what they call it. But I don't see them on the table so often anymore. I think the 3+ armor save really kind of hurts them, and only having 5 wounds too. Usually things are like strength 6, toughness 6, wound 6, but they lost that, or they don't have that. Next, probably the most iconic choice in the whole Tyranid book is the Carnifex. It's a heavy support. You can take them in like squadrons now. You can take them in units of 3. They used to be 160 points, and now they're 120. But for that, you get weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 9, toughness 6, wounds 4, initiative 2, attacks 3, leadership 7, save 3+. Is a monstrous creature. You start out with 2 pairs of scything talons, which will give you 4 attacks, 5 on the charge. They're fearless. You have instinctive behavior feed, which if you take a unit of them, it is critical for you to stay in synapse, or else 50% of the time you stop, smack each other, and then you just stand there, and that's a bad place for Carnifex to be in, because despite how tough they sound, their toughness 6 isn't super hard to kill, and they will be gunned down with no mercy. And they have a special rule called Living Battering Ram. When this model charges, it inflicts D3 Hammered Wrath attacks rather than just 1. Now this is really cool because they have strength 9. 3 of them on the charge will do 6 on average, 6 strength 9 hits on something, which for a Wraith Knight or a Night Titan, that's pretty bad. I mean, that's going to be like 4. 9. No. It's 3 damage results. 3 hull points before at initiative 10. So against most vehicles, that's just going to be. I mean, you could glance something to death on the charge, which is really interesting. A lot of people who take these, they'll take 1. They may or may not take them in a Tyrannocyte, which is our new drop pod model, which I'll cover when we get to the Leviathan Codex or supplement. But they'll take the twin-linked Devourers with brain leech worms, which is what the Hive Tyrants can get, and kind of use them as a cheaper version of the non-flying version of the Tyranid Hive Tyrant. Interestingly, if you just have 1, you lose your ability to shoot, which is terrible. But feed isn't such a bad thing, uh, especially if you get them out for close combat. So I'd take them with the guns. The guns are pretty good. Strength 6, AP dash, 12 shots. They're only Ballistic 3, so they're not as good as the Hive Tyrant, but um, they're the only other unit that can take that, and they're a lot cheaper. They used to be, like I said, 160 points. Now it's 150 for Twin Link Devourers. So they've dropped and gotten a lot better in this most recent codex. I've also seen people take them close combat oriented, and they'll give them Crushing Claws and Scything Talons so that they get their Strength 10 with Armor Bane, and that's the best thing we have for taking out like Armor 14 stuff. It's got to make it in close combat, but my phone thinks I'm talking to it again.
I don't know if I'm...
Okay, my phone's kind of creepy sometimes. Okay, so but if you take the Crushing Claws and Scything Talons, Strength 10 armor with Armor Bane gives you you ignore the unwieldy because you're a monstrous creature, but you flip Land Raiders like nothing, and it's kind of a more of a fluffier way to play it. Close combat oriented lists are fun to play. You just got to make sure they get in close combat because your opponent might not let you get them in close combat with what they want to be in combat with. So because they're kind of slow moving, they're like little angry turtles running around on the table. So just be cognizant of that. If you're looking for some quicker, faster moving units, I'd point you to the Molochs and the Trigons. So we'll start out with Molochs. Web skill 3, Ballistic skill 0. Again, I don't know why they give us 0 models because Ballistic skill 0 models because that just means we can't fire like artillery placements and stuff. Which, while thematic and fluffy, I just wish they could shoot something. Strength 6, Toughness 6, Wounds 6, Initiative 4, Assault or Attack 3, Leadership 8, Save 3+. They're monstrous creatures. They're Deep Strike, Fearless, Hit and Run. That's a big one. Hit and Run. Instinctive Behavior, Feed. So again, they're only models of units of 1. So feed doesn't really hurt you that bad. Plus, a lot of times you'll be doing hit and run. A lot of times, what I like to do with them is I'll talk through their rules where they deep strike in on top of folks and eat them. But I'll do that. The next turn I might charge into something, and then on my opponent's turn hit and run, and then on my turn burrow in again or something. Okay, so burrow. An unengaged Moloch can, at any point during its movement phase from the second game turn onwards, elect to burrow. If it does so, remove it from the table and place it into ongoing reserves. A Moloch cannot deep strike and burrow in the same turn. So basically, you have to spend a full turn on the table before you can burrow, and then you can't like just pop back and up and down. You can't like deep strike in and then at the end of the movement phase burrow again, because then that's not really fair to your opponents who would never get to shoot at you. Terror from the Deep. When arriving from Deep Strike Reserve, a Moloch can choose to Deep Strike onto a point occupied by another model, friend or foe. Roll for Scatter as normal. If the Moloch Deep Strikes onto a point occupied by another model, do not roll on the Deep Strike mishap table. Instead, place a large blast marker directly over the spot the Moloch Deep Strike into. All units except flyers and flying monster creatures beneath the blast marker suffer a number of Strength 6 AP2 hits with the Ignores Cover special rule equal to the number of models that the unit has underneath the blast marker. This is a long rule. If the blast marker is on the multi-level ruin, only models on the lowest level of the ruin count as being under the blast marker. For wound allocation purposes, assume the attack is coming from the center of the blast marker. Hits against vehicles are reserved against their side, or resolved against their side armor. If, after removing casualties, it is now possible to place the Moloch on the table over the spot where the blast marker landed, then do so, even if it is within 1 inch of another model, but not if it would be in base contact with or occupying the same space as another model. If it is not possible to place the Moloch, replace the large blast marker on the spot and resolve another round of damage as resolved detailed above. If it, after removing casualties for a second time, if it is still not possible to place the Moloch, roll on the Deep Strike mishap table. So, a really long rule, just basically say you can Deep Strike in as a large blast template, Strength 6 AP2, ignores cover, and if you cannot be placed even within 1 inch of an enemy model, you can actually be within an inch of an enemy model with this rule. Then you do it again, and then if you still can't be placed, then you go into you roll in the mishap table. Molochs are only 140 points, and a lot of people I see take 3 of them in their lists, just because they're so cheap, and they have 6 toughness, 6 wounds. I really like them a lot. I have like 5 Trigon Moloch type models, and I use them a lot. They're very hit or miss, though. If you scatter off, they're so disappointing. But when they hit, man, your opponent will aim everything at them because they don't want that to keep happening. So they're a little bit more reliable. They would be auto include, but as they are, it's like you kind of gotta roll with the punches as far as how you roll the scatters for them. Next, we have Trigons. So there's Trigons and there's Trigon Primes. Trigons, they're actually all the stats are the same. So let me just go through the stats. They're web skill 5, blow skill 3, strength 6, toughness 6, wound 6s, initiative 4, attacks 5. They have 2 sets of close combat weapons though, so they're actually attack 6, leadership 8. The Trigon Prime is leadership 10 because it's a synapse creature, and they have a save of 3+. Unit type is monstrous creature. Their weapons and biomorphs is the Trigon has a bioelectric pulse, which is 6 strength 5 AP dash shots. No, they're AP 5 shots, I think. And then Trigon Primes have bioelectric pulse with containment spines, which means they get 12 shots, strength 5, and then they get an 18-inch range. And they have 2 pairs of sighting talons. So they are kind of interesting in that they have shooting attacks, and they're kind of kitted out for close combat. So that's really something to keep in mind when you're deep striking them in, is that they do have a shooting attack. It comes for free, and you should use that, especially the turn if they deep strike in, because you're getting to shoot with them as well, which is really helpful, and it can do a lot of damage too. I had a list once where I ran 2 Flying High Tyrants and 3 of these guys, and it was actually pretty competitive. This was, of course, in 5th edition. Maybe it was 6th edition. Yeah, I think it was 6th edition. Before we got our new codex, but it was pretty fun. They have Deep Strike, Fearless, Feed, Instinctive Behavior, Feed, just for the Trigon because it isn't a Synapse creature, but the Trigon Prime is a Synapse creature with Shadow in the Warp. Subterranean Assault, if when a Trigon or Trigon Prime deploys by Deep Strike, it scatters on top of impassable terrain or another model, reduce the scatter distance by the minimum required to avoid the obstacle, so it's like a drop pod when it comes in. After the Trigon or Trigon Prime is emerged, mark the position under the creature's base with a suitable marker. This represents the tunnel left by its emergence. Any friendly Tyranid infantry unit that arrives from reserves in subsequent turns may emerge from the Trigon's tunnel instead of arriving from reserve as normal. Only 1 unit may emerge from each tunnel marker each turn. So close to being useful. It's just they have to deep strike in, and then your other guys can't come in from reserves that turn. They would have to hopefully roll and not stay off the table, and then come in the next turn, and then only 1 at a time. So it's just kind of awkward to use. What it's really good for is the when you have it's not without number. There's a formation that lets your guys come back on. Like after a unit of Gaunts dies, the Gaunts come back on. If you take that formation, you should take a Trigon, so that way you have a tunnel. So that way you don't have to run across the whole table a second time. You can just appear out of the tunnel. If any unit chooses to do so, place the entire unit so that all of its models are wholly within 6 inches of the center marker in the unit coherency. These models cannot be placed with 1 inch. Enemy models are within impassable terrain. If any models cannot be placed, these excess models are removed as casualties. A unit may not be moved or charged in the same turn it arrives from the Trigon's tunnel, but may shoot or run. So basically, they just can't appear and then assault. They have to stand there and then go. Termagants would be able to shoot. Cormagants would be able to run, but just be aware that you can't come out of the tunnel and assault. I think all we've got left is Tyranifexes. It's 190 points and 230 points respectively for those 2 units for Trigons and Trigon Primes. Trigon Primes, they can take bio artifacts, which is really interesting. They can take that Strength 4 AP4 template that is in the bio artifacts section, so they can deep strike in and then use that template. It's not Strength 4 AP4. It's a Poison 2 plus AP4 template, which is really interesting. And you can just kind of pull some hijinks like that. They're a good way to get some synapse downrange pretty quick if you're not taking Flying Hive Tyrants. So they were a lot better in the last codex, and they're not bad now. It's just that the other things are kind of stepped in to take their place. Tyrannifexes. So Tyrannifexes is the cannon bug. They've got a lot of different options for guns. Think of them as like a Lehman Russ, almost. They're Web Skill 3, Bliss Skill 3, Strength 6, Toughness 6, Wound 6, Initiative 2, Attacks 3, Leadership 8, Save 2 plus. They're a monstrous creature. They come with Acid Spray, which is the Torrent Strength 6 AP4 Flamer, which is kind of like a Hellhound. And Stinger Salvo, which is the 4 Strength 5 shot, so kind of like a little 4 Strength 5, yeah. So it's kind of like a little heavy bolter equivalent. They're fearless, and they come with instinctive behavior hunt. So that means that, again, if they are out of synapse range, they're never going to like get pinned or anything, but they just have to shoot the closest target. I would always take these guys with Acid Spray, just because the other guns, like they can get the Flesh Borer Hive, which is a Punisher equivalent. Well, it's really like a 20-shot bolter. And then the Rupture Cannon for 30 points. It's a 2-shot Strength 10 AP4, which sounds really great. And back when you could explode vehicles on a penetrate, no matter what your AP was, if you rolled a 5, it wrecked them, and if you rolled a 6, it exploded them. You were looking for penetrates. You weren't looking just for mass hull points or mass removal of hull points to wreck vehicles. So it was really good, and I took 2 of them. Now I take them sometimes, but I don't take them with the Rupture Cannon because even if you penetrate, it's not going to destroy them in one hit, and you're only going to get 1 hit every turn statistically. And now that there's so much jinking and stuff like that, it's just not as effective. But they're the only monstrous creature with a 2+ armor save that I'm aware of, certainly in this codex. So I do kind of like them for that. They go really well in drop pods with the Acid Spray. And then I did a Tyranid tactics video on these guys, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. So anyway, that is the conclusion of my codex review, interestingly. So I appreciate you guys making it through with me. I hope to set this as like a baseline so I can kind of point people back to it in the future. But I'm going to expand from here. I'm not going to necessarily do like a read from the book type thing. I'm going to do army lists and some tactics and maybe even some battle reports in the not so distant future. So anyway, we're not out of the woods yet. We still got to make it through the formations, the data slate formations, and then the Leviathan book. And then we'll just do purely synthesis, I guess, content where you're synthesizing like lists and tactics out of the content provided by the material or the like books and supplemental material. So anyway, thanks for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll move on to the next series of reviews. So thanks for watching. Bye.